gentlemen.
If you are listening to this right now, asking yourself, what do the questions of the universe hold, then we must sadly tell you, we got
Nothing.
We Got Nothing is brought to you by the Monopole. If the lights are too bright, crowds too big, and the space not producing a chill state of mind, Monopole is the only bar that has the vibes that makes you feel warm, welcomed, and ecstatic. If the multiple bar games, including a Led Zeppelin-themed pinball machine and, believe it or not, an air beer pong machine, won't elevate your energy, then perhaps it is the lovely staff that will. Every staff member is always honest, funny, and loving, giving you the sense that you truly belong. The bar is in fact the oldest in Plattsburgh, circa 1897, and it is a hotbed for some of the best local music in the Adirondack Lake Champlain area. Monopole, with more than a century of experience in setting the vibe. Welcome to the podcast that elevates your consciousness past the stratosphere and into the great unknown and beyond. I am the host that raises the hairs on your neck like a ghost, the one and only Catalyst Jost, and this is season 3 of We Got Nothing. If I had some kind of sound effects bar right here, it would be applause. And join me today for the season premiere. I am joined by the magenta matriarch, the soul hailing from 3 doors down the cosmos, Senora Vida Enseterno to you, Mrs. Lydia Mieses-Monette. Now, how have you been?
Well, I mean, it's been a crazy week, but for the most part, in the scheme of things, just been hunkered in, working on art with the lovely Saturn Lunar Nova. We have a few titles coming out, and our first anthology book got sent to press about, 20 days ago. We're waiting for production to send it out.
Oh, so damn. All right. Really getting the name out there and stuff like that. What's the name of this said anthology book?
It's Rings of Saturn, Volume 1.
Nice. And what does the, what does the anthology entail? Like, what is it about, actually?
So, it starts off with some survivors from Earth. They're, fleeing, the planet, and you can tell, there's, maybe, some kind of virus that's turning all of humanity into zombies. And so it's, this spaceship of scientists, and, they're oh, we hope that, there's something of a future for humanity. And they find this space bar called Titan's Tavern, and they go in, and the bartenders are like, "Oh, you Earther, only miserable Earthers drink alcohol,
Ain't that the truth?"
So she aptly asks them, it's because he mentions that he has, obviously he's met humans before, and she's like, "There's been humans here?" He's like, "Yeah, they dump out from this black hole." And so she's like, how do civilizations move on after cataclysm, basically? And the guy's like, "Oh, I've got stories, from every corner of the galaxy." And then, of course, he goes on and tells the stories. So then, of course, you wrote one of them. Yeah. So that's in there.
I did, in fact, write one of the aforementioned stories that will be mentioned and read in this specific anthology, and I cannot wait to see it fully published and just see how people really enjoy the work. But you said something there regarding the theme about how these aliens, you said, talk about how to live after a cataclysm. Well, it is approximately July 1st, 2022 at the time of recording this, and well, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. So this episode, this premiere of season 3 is going to be entitled Hell Hath No Fury. Why, people may ask? Well, what is it? It was approximately, God, what was it, Tuesday that the announcement came in?
It was Friday morning.
Oh, God, yeah. it's already been a full week. Oh my god.
But before that, we knew that they were like basically somebody leaked that it was going to happen. Like, not that it had certainly happened, but like the documents got leaked. And then that's when like the right wing media is like, people have no right. This is a disservice to our nation. Like, but
It's a disservice to God.
if I was the secretary, I would have leaked that shit too. So
Yeah, no, no.
like,
No, you ain't lying. You ain't lying. I looked up a few different articles and took the best notes that I can, running on like only a few hours of sleep. So these first couple ones come from BBC.com. First one is entitled "What Happens with the Overturn of Roe v. Wade." Yes, folks, it has officially happened. Abortion rights have been officially axed in the country of the great United States of A, and A for asshole. And more importantly, that begs the question, what is next? But sticking more to the topic, I was looking at the article that said what happens with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and approximately 23 states, conservative states, mind you, are exacting pro-life abortion ban policies. Some of which have actually been dormant since even before Roe v. Wade. Now that shit's appalling.
right.
Uh, and God, well, before I go into that, like, so, Lid, like, I know the answer, but how does this make you feel, dude? Like,
All right, so like I know a lot of people are angry right now, but I was angry 4 years ago after the Republicans, like, not only did they constantly filibuster Obama like off of anything that he wanted to do, he was in his last few months of his presidency, and as you know, like, one of the judges passed away. I can't remember right now, but I do remember that he wanted to appoint Merrick Garland to be justice. So like I feel like they wouldn't have had. I mean, it was a 6-9 vote, so it would have been 5-9 still, but like I'm still mad about that justice because like it's like there is no logic with half of our country's politicians. It's like I think back to like philosophy and the difference between certainty and fact, and like these people are like all like running off certainty on emotion and like playing to like the extremes. And like, so they told Obama he couldn't nominate Merrick Garland because he only had a few months left in office. And so Obama like conceded or whatever to like these nut jobs. And then 4 years later, Obama has like only, I mean, not Obama, Trump has only a couple months left. And like he made his nomination and the Democrats let him. They fucking let him. And like, I was angry then. But now, like, now that this happened, I was like, it almost serves us right, like, because people weren't paying attention, you know, and that is, like, it's such an important part of our checks and balances in government, and, like, I guess being here alone, like, being with my family and not, like, really getting out much, it's kind of, like, exacerbated by psychoses to where, like, I have such a strong nihilism for the systems that humanity has in place right now. Like, nothing's working the way it's supposed to, and these are like things that were built by dead white guys like 200 years ago that had the audacity to say every man is created equal when they knew that they didn't mean that.
yeah, what I've been saying for a while there is tradition is just peer pressure from the dead. And God, this is a controversial opinion to some of our core audience members, but I actually don't mind Republicans for one simple reason. Most Republicans, they can be negotiated with. Conservatives, on the other hand, you cannot get any negotiation out of them, period. It's either their way or the highway. God's will, pro-life, pro-gun, like, basically a lot of pro shit that has really tainted the foundation of the nation for quite some
And
time now.
on the same topic of the Supreme Court SCOTUS here, what they did with the guns is like really messing up our New York City laws down here. We have a new mayor, Eric Adams. I'm a fan. I think like he's super compassionate. He was police commissioner for like, well, no, what was it, commissioner or was it like lieutenant? He was like high up for like 25 years. And like he's been fighting these ghost guns, and like we have like these regulations here, and like what they did with the guns just like really, we're already struggling. Like gun violence is up here, and like what they just did makes it worse. It makes it easier for more people to have guns, you know what I mean? Or not.
I was about to say, like, how does that make you feel that, like, in all honesty, they're, like, the gun control laws in New York are heavily strict, but yet people can still obtain guns and there's still violence. I mean, look what happened about less than a month ago with the whole Buffalo situation, you know?
Well, it makes me feel like if they actually did want to do something about it, they could, but they cling again to like this dead notion of like whatever it was, Second Amendment or whatever amendment it is, that's the right to bear arms. But that was like, again, like over 200 years ago, like when people actually had a chance at fighting government, overturning government. Our government spends like more than 10 times even like our nearest like world power. We're spending it on military. You think you're gonna like have a coup and overturn like a multi-billion-dollar military? Like,
Yeah, what is it? The United States is like the leading runner for when it comes to arms and whatnot. But going back to the whole Roe v. Wade overturn, here was a fucked up thing I was looking at. Those 23 aforementioned states that I had said earlier. Here's a fucked up fact. I was counting through all of them, and there are only 5 of these states that will give an abortion in the cases of rape or incest. 5 out of 23. Believe it or not, none of them were Alabama. So, but that also that also raises the question, like, does that make like the other states that don't have that policy fucked up for not including that in their whatever abortion policies they have that are pro-choice, or does that speak more about the 5 aforementioned states that actually have the act? In case, like, it's a mind fuck either way you slice it.
yeah, it's just another system of control. Like I think obviously like a lot of these states feel this way because of religion, and religion was morality. But for me, like religion is man-made, and like I see like the bias of man in it. And like now that I'm out of it, I was raised Pentecostal, and it still like influences like a lot of my behaviors and my opinions, even though like I don't really want it to. Like I'd love to be like boss and assertive and not worry about other people's feelings all the time, but I do because I was raised righteously and compassionately in a Pentecostal church.
Right.
Which, that being said, it's like it's not bad to like do unto others, but like when you try to like control them and like it's through the lens of like we're here to serve man, it's like it's blowing my mind so much. I think I'm like realizing how much I just dislike toxic masculinity. And it's not like you could tell somebody they're being toxically masculine, because that's a trigger word for a lot of men. But when I think about het cis males, like in my heart, like if I think about like how I view the world and how they view the world, there's just such a disconnect. And it blows my mind because boys are raised by women. Like you spend your whole life being around women. So how do you grow up to have like these incel thoughts, or like these women are here like, you know, whatever. It's like we're not cave people anymore. Like we don't need like these things in place.
It goes back to tradition, you know, because like even though like it's the major metropolitan areas of the New York State there that primarily vote blue, the surrounding areas are all predominantly red. I mean, like here in the North Country, the only dot of blue around for miles is Plattsburgh. and everywhere else in the surrounding areas is red. And why I'm using that as a springboard is because a lot of those aforementioned surrounding areas still cling to a traditional either Catholic or Christian sense of raising a family, basically almost the Disney area post nuclear family, if you will.
I would have loved to stay Christian. Are you kidding me? I was in that bubble. I would read the Bible and stuff. And actually that's where it started to go away, is when I started to read the Bible. Because I first noticed that they would write down the names of the men and the names of the sons and give them each an age. And then they'd maybe like mention that they had wives or daughters, but they wouldn't put down the names of the wife or the daughter. Right? We don't care about women. What are they to history? Like, nobody wants to know about that. And that was the first thing I saw, and I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then the whole story with Sarah, I don't really want to get into.
No, I've had that conversation with you plenty of times.
Well, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, like, also, you keep in mind, the thing is, it's not all women that are primarily targeted by this overturn, too. It's mainly, like, mostly poor women. I mean, RBG even said, like, 3 years ago in a BBC interview that, like, overturning these laws primarily targets poor women who can't probably even afford to get the abortion in the first place, even if it was in a blue state, because also they can't afford to take a day off of work. I mean, how messed up is that?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Like, this perpetuates a cycle of basically the lower to middle lower class, like, are forced to give birth to these children so that
it's like George Carlin said, like, it's like they want to save these babies, but once they're here, they're on their own.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, they give a fuck about the life until it is actually born, and it perpetuates a non-breakable cycle of poverty, possibly even substance abuse, alcohol abuse, and in turn also physical abuse to the mental health in general. Yet nobody's is acknowledging that. If they do, they're keeping silent about it.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I was also looking this up over at WLOS.com, ABC 13 News. God, now that the overturn has happened, some of these states, like dormant abortion, pro-life policies,
the trigger laws.
They're starting to come back like a cancer that was in remission, but now all of a sudden, out of the blue, like it's showing up on the charts again. Like, for example, North Carolina's 20-week abortion ban, it's actually been in the statutes for years, since actually 1973, pertaining to, the Roe v. Wade verdict. After conception, there is, or after you're pregnant, I should say, there is a 20-week abortion ban. And it's just like, really? And, like, when it comes to North Carolina, they will give an abortion if, like, it's physically damaging to the mother's health, or if the fetus won't survive. But even so, like, where does this go from here? Where does it stop? That's the real question.
Well, where does it go? It means that our bodies aren't our own. Like, our choices to do with our bodies aren't our own, and they're gonna go after other things too if they can. Like, to the point where they're gonna repeal same-sex marriage, and they're even gonna maybe go as far to be like, same-sex sex is illegal because our bodies aren't our own, right? If that's what they're saying.
That is true.
It could go that far. Like, and that's just really, really scary. That feels a little bit like 1984 to me. Like, in a sense that you can't like do whatever you want. Even same-sex sex in 1984 was prohibited.
It's it just paint well, it's funny you mentioned 1984. Like it just paints the future as almost this dystopian setting of like your body is not yours. Like you can have like thoughts that can be considered crimes. Having a thought can be a crime, and you can be punished for that. And
Yeah.
no, having an opinion that doesn't agree with the overall narrative that people in power are trying to perpetuate, that is a crime. And that's not what this country was founded upon.
Right.
In fact, it is the polar opposite of what this country was founded upon. But
I get conflicted with what this country was founded on. Honestly, it's like it doesn't make sense to me.
well, this goes off of the problem with tradition as a whole. Like tradition is a part of history, and basing policies primarily off of history without any room for progression for what the future, what untold like events the future will hold, that can be a recipe for disaster.
Right.
But
Right.
what do I know? I'm a dude in his mid 20s. I can't I cannot eject a fetus or a full grown embryo out of any orifice in my body. So why does my opinion matter?
Right. Well, I mean, it's just so, ah, it blows my mind. Well, I'm conflicted about the forefathers because, like, obviously being partially of indigenous descent, like, I've gone over the Holocaust and been beat over the head with these dead Jewish people multiple times every year. But you know what they don't like to talk about is the millions of people that they genocided here. They don't beat us over the head with that. We maybe get like 2 paragraphs for the Trail of Tears. And like
I actually want to go more into that subject in one sec, but like still sticking to the topic of history, like God, I don't even think that's a school subject you can really pass a grade on because, like, the way and the content in which history is taught in schools is not only different by state basis. It actually changes on a county by county basis because what was it? When I went to school in Clinton County there, and in the school I was at, we had learned about during World War II about how Japanese Americans were placed into internment camps, especially after what happened with Pearl Harbor. Now, one fine day of just sitting down with your husband, shooting the shit and whatnot, I had mentioned that statement to him, and he didn't know what I was talking about, and I was like, "Are you serious?" And Franklin County's only one county over, and I'm just like, "How is that not taught in your school?" Like, so that right there shows that like history can be edited, and like in the way and what content is taught can absolutely be changed and altered, and that is scary, especially in a world where we base a lot of policies and laws off history.
yeah, they're very selective about what they choose to remember.
They're
By
very
people in power that have been in power, the het cis Caucasian males that are like 50 plus.
they're very selective on what fuck ups, if any, they will acknowledge.
Yes, because to reflect on this means that you're unpatriotic. Like, I mean, think about that thought. Like, as a person, like, not as a nation, as a person,
As a
if
human.
I don't reflect on the things that I've done, like, and I don't, like, correct my shitty behavior, does that even make sense to you? It's like, oh, well, that was 5 years ago. I just murdered them 5 years ago. Let's not talk. Let's just move
Well, it's
Like,
not even a mistake anymore at that point. It is a pattern of behavior and it is toxic.
it's manipulative.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, going back to the topic you had placed earlier about indigenous people, like like all throughout the Americas, really, not just the United States, South America, and even in Canada. There, like,
Hmm.
okay, I have a few questions. So can you like name a few accounts of indigenous mistreatment in the past like 20 years that like say I, God, that have just been swept under the rug that is not even that you can't even find on mainstream media right now?
Okay, so I just started listening to a podcast, Thunder Bay. I got a few examples here. Thunder Bay is a very like isolated northern part. That's like I think it's part north of Lake Superior, like right on the edge there. And you maybe have like 300 to 500 miles of road north, but after that, it's all just like wild land. So a lot of like teenagers, indigenous teenagers, their first time coming to school and being in like a community is in Thunder Bay. Like, so they fly from northern territories down to Thunder Bay, and the amount of hate there, they don't even recognize that they hate indigenous as racism. It's more of like, yeah, damn straight we do that. Like, they don't see it that way. They see that as this is our land. We came from Finland. Like, this is our new Finland, and the indigenous are a threat to our new Finland and our new way of life. So the rates of violence and murders of young indigenous and just indigenous in general are 300% higher in Thunder Bay than anywhere like in Canada.
Jesus
And
Christ.
so that's just like a general statement for that. And then just saying that like they don't even see it as racism. And like if you walk up to a white lady and say, does Thunder Bay have a problem? She'd be like, no, that's an isolated incident or whatever. But it's like very common for them to throw things from their vehicles out at like indigenous people, or to grab like an inebriated indigenous like kid, like these are children, kids like in their teens, and just toss them into the rivers, because there's several rivers throughout Thunder Bay. And the other thing I was thinking of right now, like again, like now we're going south to Brazil. Trump had all his executive orders, right? And Brazil is a very large producer of beef, but they had strict regulations on the forests. And like a lot of indigenous people are still in the Amazon, right? Well, Bolsonaro has no love for them, as you'd imagine, like a mostly Portuguese descended, like almost authoritarian type, like Trump. Like he's basically like the Brazilian Trump.
Gotcha.
Like, so there are like illegal trappers and like cattle herders that just want to like burn down more of the forest, and they were actually like attacking villagers and like tribal people. And like it's a problem because with the executive order, Trump's like, I don't want anyone to know where the meat's coming from. I haven't eaten beef in 4 years because I don't know if somebody died for my beef. You know what I mean? Like if like
Yeah, not
it's
just
just
the cattle, like an actual person dying for the beef. I think if those facts were enlightened upon more, like people would definitely be looking at what they're eating in a whole different light, not just nutrition wise.
oh yeah, for sure. And
Does this
honestly,
burger
there are
taste like homicide to you?
well, there are these reporters, and they like one of them was murdered recently because he was working on a book closely with communities in Brazil to like expose like a lot of the illegal like trafficking and hunting and burning of the forest going on, and they murdered him. And Bolsonaro said, "Good, he was poking into things he shouldn't have been." Like, and that's the attitude. It's like, this is our land. It's not theirs. They're in the way. Kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody speaks up for them, even though we had like this big like racial awakening and wanted to fight for each other, there was still like not a mainstream embracing of the indigenous that I saw nationwide. It did come to fruition in Minnesota. There was like Native Life marches there, but I didn't see it really anywhere else.
Yeah, and I didn't even see that like even on mainstream media. Like I actually had no idea that was a thing until you just said that.
The problem is, I don't know what's up with these algorithms on social media or whatever. The problem is, I could post a picture of myself, just my face, say it's my birthday, I get 70, 80 likes. I post something like Roe v. Wade's overturned, I get one angry reaction from my friend Heidi, and nothing else. Like, where'd everything else go? And that's just like Roe v. Wade. Like, I share my indigenous stuff and nobody cares. Like, maybe 2 or 3 people, but it doesn't get the same traction that, like, oh, it's my birthday. Or like one of those motivating things like, live every day like you know something good's gonna happen. That's so fake. Like, not that I don't mean that. I do mean it, but I hate that people are only like going there for that.
That's why I primarily post memes, because memes are funny, and so they're kind of the new form of satire in the modern day age. Like, it speaks about the truth, but you cringe that you have to admit that it's true, and that's what causes that laughter reaction to it. But actually going back to what you were saying before about like the racial awakening that happened a couple years back, there was actually something I wanted to really ask you about. And if if you're not comfortable about talking about it, you can say so. I know during the 2020 BLM protest over at Plattsburgh there, you had done a different sign there that not many people really took notice, and some people did not favor. Do you want to go more into that?
Oh, I don't know who didn't favor it. I didn't really make a big deal out of it. I just wanted to have like my Native Lives thing because the indigenous are actually like killed at a higher rate than African Americans, and people don't know that. And like that's kind of crazy because like it's disproportionate because like there's so much fewer indigenous people. So I just had like names of like people on a canvas like all the way down, and then I had my Native Lives shirt on. I don't remember anybody like really saying anything to me, but I do know that I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable being too vocal about it. And then I also don't feel comfortable about organizing my own movement. I'm mixed race heritage, so
Right.
I don't feel like I have like the ability to speak on it fully for like, you know, all of the indigenous community, but it is still very close to my heart, and like I always have my ear out for things like that. I'm like always paying attention to just history and, you know, how it affects us today. Like, look at the boarding schools.
Yeah, I mean,
Heard about that.
yeah, no, right. What is it? When I was taking Canadian studies over in Clinton Community College, there was one section of the class there where we had read about, I believe it was in somewhere in Quebec there, about this one boarding school. There was actually a documentary made on it called Unrepented, back from like the early 2000s there. Holy Jesus, it was a mini genocide of just like hundreds, maybe even thousands of indigenous children, ones that like were forced to go into these boarding schools, and like the absolute mistreatment there. You would have thought it was kind of like God, it sounded like the torture house from that one serial killer there, H. Holmes. Like that dude. It sounded like a full-on torture house, but for kids. Nobody ever acknowledges that shit, and I think that's the most scariest part about the whole story.
And you'll never know because they want to hide it. They don't want it exposed. Like, even in Franklin County, my mother was in a relationship with a Mohawk woman, and her grandmother was deaf from an early age. So like she talked about getting taken to a boarding school, and the shoes that they put her in, like, she's talking about how tight the shoes were and how she hated it, and, like, that they were mean to her. And, like, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like much because that school was for the deaf and blind, but, like, we strongly suspect that, like, it was a boarding school. And if you try to, like, confront white historians with it, they're like, no, never. But my mom happened to be in the House of History there, and then she said, she's looking through pictures, she's like, how do you explain this? And, like...
Yo, that's savage.
From the 20s with just a bunch of little brown babies and, like, nuns or something. And it's like, you can feel it. Like, I could feel it when I was on that ground. I don't know, like, if anybody, like, really believes in... When sad things happen, there's an energy to the place. Like, the place absorbs energy. And you could tell that something happened there. It stood abandoned and derelict for decades before they raised it down. But, like, I could feel it. And in fact, I had, like, a spiritual encounter once just walking down the hallway at Franklin Academy. I was on, like, the far side of the building, and I had my hair in a long braid down my back, and the hallway was completely silent, but something pulled my hair. It was like a strong tug, and, like, I went back like this, and I turned around. There was no footsteps. There was nothing. It was just an empty hall, and that's nothing like that has ever happened to me in my life. And, like, I had this feeling like it's one of the kids. It's one of the kids saying hi, like, playing with me.
That's...
You know? And then my stepsister, or my cousin, whatever she wants me to refer to her as, Wood's daughter, she was at a soccer game, and she had, like, a similar incident. Not that she got her hair pulled, but, like, she felt like a hand reach up and, like, grab her hands. And it's just sad, you know? You can definitely, like, feel when these things have happened, like, if you're open to it. And they know. They know who's sympathetic to them, and
who's sensitive, and, like, who can, like, really communicate with them.
Right. So there used to be, like, this giant stack behind the frickin' boarding school, and we think that's where they burned the bodies.
No shit. God damn.
Some of them never made it home.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are around to play, probably. But now that the building's raised, I don't know. I haven't been on the land since. Yeah, no. And if it happened in Franklin County, it probably happened every middle of nowhere, you know?
Not gonna go into, like, why that's more than likely a possibility in Franklin County, of all places, but as you and your husband will also know. But here's a couple more questions. So now, when it comes to the indigenous population of the Americas in general, what does the future look like, in your opinion?
Oh, well, I hope it's better. There has to be a lot of generational healing. I'm learning more about epigenetics over the past, like, month. It's gotten into my radar. And what epigenetics do, like, especially, it's for everyone, but especially for women hormonally, is, like, we have, like, these little switches inside of us, just like we have for cancer or any other disease. And, like, if you are lucky enough to have them switched on, it feels as if you've experienced all the trauma of your ancestors. So, like, I would always joke, oh, I love the mountains, it must be because of my tainos, like, whatever. But actually, it honestly probably is. Because one of my ancestors, at some point, said, run for the hills, and they survived. That's how you live. But, like, when you're dealing with being oppressed and, like, not being able to speak up, like, it just puts you in this point of depression where, like, you feel like even if you tried to do something, it wouldn't matter. And there's a lot of nihilism on reservations, a lot of young deaths, and just a lot of mental health issues. And, like, most of the people that get murdered by the police do have some form of mental health or substance abuse issues. I think that's what drives the MMIW, the missing, murdered, and indigenous women. Like, they are, like, the #1 sex trafficked population, because I think we defeat ourselves, like, with our narratives of, like, who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just, like, this disconnect. And I do hope it changes, but, like, if they can't, like, find healing with that, like, and how are they ever going to find healing with that? Like, when you meet people and you're like, oh, you know, I'm gonna call it Kyunha Rose, like, she's Kyunha Rose, like, she was at the Met Gala, she's, like, really strong in the, like, forefront, and, like, you have white people like, wow, you're indigenous, I thought we killed you all, like.
Got him. Oh, god damn. Yeah, nihilism is a natural response to an ever-changing toxic world, and especially with all the little traumatic events that it sows into the future. And which, speaking of which, what needs to be done so that, like, that there is a much more positive future for indigenous people?
I can't answer that because I don't know what needs to be done so that there's a positive future for anyone right now.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That is fair.
Joining Congress myself or something, but even then, I'd like, how is that gonna work? I'm just one person. I get frustrated because I don't know what to do about it, and I don't have faith in the systems in place. But they've just been keeping a low profile pretty much. That's what they try to do. They want us, that's part of it, is because, like, if you're not going to be heard in the right light and people aren't going to have the right perspective about it, a lot of them just hide and stay quiet because, like, out of sight, out of mind, it's safer to not be seen than to have the wrath of the Federal Bureau of Investigation down, because the FBI technically has jurisdiction on reservations, and if they don't like what's happening, they'll come in overnight and they'll do whatever they have to do. Like, even in New York State, I've seen things happen. Like, there's a reservation for the Oneonta. Like, they had a vote on, I don't know, something having to do with their taxes or something, and the FBI came in and tore down their government building and school. Like, just, like, completely leveled it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
So, yeah, it's hard. I guess we just have to have, like, the mainstream and culture and society on our side.
Now, you and your husband have been living an artist lifestyle for an extremely long time now. Like, I guess, God, what are the challenges of being an artist in today's world, especially economic wise, and more importantly, how do you still keep at it, like, especially in areas that don't really support it as well as they could?
Well, yeah, I definitely always felt that, especially growing up, like, well, at least spending my high school years in Malone, it wasn't challenging to me, and I didn't have anyone to challenge my perceptions, which is unfortunate because I find myself, like, being, like, a little handicapped by that. Like, Dom, bless him, like, he's excelling in leaps and bounds because he's willing to, like, see what he's doing wrong and like, expand upon it. Where, like, I'm like, I already do this pretty well. Like, but, yeah, the challenges definitely is, like, I always thought I had to work to support my, like, art stuff, and, like, I was doing that for a while, but it got to a point where I gave away too much of my creative energy to, like, the day job, and it's like, oh, man, like, I can't help myself, and that's just, again, part of that personality is, like, you keep giving and giving and giving, and, like, I don't necessarily think that that's the right thing to teach young women. I think that we need to teach women that it's okay to have boundaries, and it's okay to, like, work for yourself, and you should value your time. Don't just give it away to people who ask. And that's where I ended up feeling, like, stuck at that day job, And now it's like I'm so far behind. Like we should have books out, and we don't because I give myself away too easily to others. At least my time, my family, my work, and so the challenges is definitely like learning how to stop being helpful to others and be helpful to myself. Right now, I've been on hiatus for painting for a while, and it hurts because that was once like a very strong part of my identity. And touching back on like what I can do, it's like, no, I don't want to go join Congress, and like I do have nihilism for like the systems in place, but at least I can create art, and like it will have like my unique perspective on things to some degree, and I'm hoping that I can get traction in some ways with that. So just looking for more connections here in New York now that we are here.
The real bitch of it is like just like making sure that you can still have a roof over your head and food in your stomach while going on the journey. And God, it's not a thing that's really encouraged, or as you said, challenged better, as opposed to they are in major metropolitan areas. But the downside to that is that everything costs more up the ass. So, where's the happy medium there?
Yeah, I definitely can't do much around here, not on my salary. But someday, when this book explodes, or one of the books, that was the thing, is like we've been, all right, so if you try to do anything, there's something that they call the Valley of Despair. And it's like when you're like chugging along and you don't really have your body of work yet, but you're building it. And it's going to feel so painful. It's going to feel like nobody cares, like that you can't finish anything and that you're not doing anything, but you're working so hard every day. And then like there's just comes a point where it's like something catches, and then it's exponential growth after that. But when you're in the Valley of Despair, you have to just keep going, even though you can't see the end of the tunnel.
The real name of the game is patience and perseverance. I think where a lot of modern day artists struggle with that, especially in today's climate, like socially and like just events. It seems we get a new world event every other week. And that really fucks with you psychologically because it really starts to put a clock down on your own mortality. So then, like, urgency and anxiety absolutely skyrocket. And especially if you're an artist, like, you focus less on actually doing the work and you just focus on wanting to get it out there. Like, no. You focus more on, I want it like noticed more. I want it like I want money from it. I want and then you start losing the passion for it, the enjoyment of just doing it. And those are the hardest mediums to like balance out.
Yo, I know I'm not part of this podcast, but
I wish you weren't in the current moment, but go ahead.
When you ask what's hard about being an artist, I'd like to read you a message that someone sent to me. Now, this is a person that is not my friend. They're like an acquaintance. I knew them from my old job.
Gotcha.
So they asked me what I've been up to. I told them that we have a book coming out. And they say, sweet, can you send me a copy of your book? I say, they'll be sold in the comic shop in Plattsburgh, plus there'll be a download on our website. She goes, no, LOL, I want a free copy of the book because we're friends. And then she sends her address, and I said, we don't have enough money to be giving away free copies. She says, oh, come on, just one free copy? I say, no way. A day passes, and then she sends me another message saying, LOL, come on. And that's why it's hard to be an artist. People don't think it's a job. It's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, I definitely can't afford to give that to her for free. We're already giving all the writers and people involved in the book.
You're making my artist job hard, if you know what I mean. And that was Saturn Lunar Nova, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways.
My lovely assistant, no, I'm with the coloring and the editing and all the stuff we put into that, and she wants it for free.
God damn.
It's not okay. I shouldn't say it's okay. It's not okay.
It isn't okay, but like you said, that's when you start categorizing the differences between like family, friends, and just like acquaintances, people who are just there, and you can be friendly with them, but they might not necessarily be a part of the long term journey as opposed to the short term.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess my biggest advice, like anybody trying to live the artist lifestyle, is like there is such a thing as an exchange, like, you know, doing things for exposure and publicity, but don't give too much of yourself away for free, because you are valuable. You only have so much time on this earth, and like don't undervalue yourself. Period.
That beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ne-
It's a very human thing. Like, I mean, we have AI able to do all these designs, like hundreds in minutes, but like even still, the AI doesn't understand like the quality of humanness. It doesn't think the same way we do. So we can come up with things still that are like specific to us that no one else would ever come up with. And that's the beauty of being a human artist. Like,
that's the
they
beauty
can
of
try
humanity.
to
Yeah.
computer to take us out, but they'll never take us out, I don't think.
And
Well,
what?
at least not in the next 100 years.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And like, what is it? It's what these like what people will perceive as imperfections with these forms of art, be it in like painting, writing, drawing, and all that stuff. These are also the unique fingerprints of your soul being translated onto a medium, be it visual or even audio wise. And I think that in the past, like at least 20 years, has been lost. And it sucks ass. But with all that being said, actually, what is the future for LOS going forward? I know you guys between the book and you do have an actual what do you call it website now. So
Yes, we have lifeonsaturnart.com. I'm paying to keep it going. I need to get our merch game stronger. I have like some posters up there, but nothing I'm too proud of. We'll definitely be posting a digital download link for Rings of Saturn issue 1 on the website itself. So that might, I don't know what I'm gonna price that at, but it'd probably just be like $2-3 for a download. But you can definitely find our social media through the site. You can find just commission links and examples of our work.
nice. And how would you want people to like look at your stuff via social media? Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that?
Yeah, I haven't been too good with Instagram. I have former works on there, but Dom is definitely prolific with his Saturn sketchbook on Instagram.
Always love his sketchbooks.
You can follow the Saturn sketchbook for strictly just line work, the comic line work. You can follow Vita in Saturno for, I guess, just I haven't like made a strictly artist account, so I do have some things on there, but you'll have to scroll a little bit to see paintings. And then, of course, there's Life on Saturn Productions, which has a mix of everything we do.
Literally, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the whole nine.
Yes, Life on Saturn, LOS. We kind of shied away from the video work a little bit. We're more focusing on graphic visual storytelling.
Gotcha.
Production-wise, I'm not going to say easier, it's just where the inspiration is for the moment. Like, going back to the topic of, like, not giving away too much of yourself, it's like, it felt like when we did the other things, like, a lot of people wanted so much and wanted to pile on projects, but they don't see how long Dom and I sat behind this computer editing and putting things together. And it's not like, we were getting paid for it either. So it's hard.
I understand completely.
And then they get entitled. It was like, oh, why isn't it done? Why didn't you finish my shit? It's like, do you realize that was like 6 hours of footage to cut, and we have like full-time jobs? Like,
no, exactly. Again, going back to the struggles of artistry. Well, folks, when it comes to how reproductive rights have been completely annihilated, maybe could be saved in the future, who knows? And when it comes to the future and tragedies of indigenous people all throughout the Americas, and when it comes to the life and struggles of a modern day artist, flat out, folks, we got nothing.
We got nothing.
Unfortunately, we do not have anything. But what we do have, what was that?
Saturn says the most literal time you've ever used that phrase.
It won't be the last either. Anyways, but what we have finally done is break out of the YouTube verse, or YouTube purgatory, as I should say. Because, believe it or not, folks, We Got Nothing can now be viewed on such mainstream media stages as Podbean and now Spotify. Not telling where else it will be posted at the current moment, but we will see in the coming episodes. So I would like to thank beautifully the great Vita and Saturno for stepping on to the stage, and I would also like briefly to thank Mr. Saturn Lunar Nova for giving his 2 cents. All it's worth a lot. And if you would like to follow more of what Catalyst Jost has in store for you, please follow me at Catalyst Jost. That is CATALY 5TJ05T over on Instagram. Look me up as Daniel Evans Jost on Facebook. And with all that being said, folks, please keep your vibes dope, keep your zen flowing, and as always, peace.